Welcome, Miracles Tribe members and Miracles Attraction Community Facebook group members. I'm Teresa McGallagher, and I'm joined here by my partner, Carly Judd Hardy, and our special guest today, Bill Free. Bill's been a teacher of A Course in Miracles that I've known for some time now, and we're very excited to have him with us on this video. And Carly is going to tell you a little bit about his background. Carly?
Thank you, Teresa, and welcome to everyone. We feel so lucky. It's such a treat for us to have Bill with us today in this continuing series of interviewing people whose lives have been affected by A Course in Miracles. And I'll tell you just a little bit about Bill. And of course, for those of us who love his wife, Lisa Natoli, he is Lisa's husband. So I guess I get to say that number one, huh? And then, of course, there is the Bill beyond Lisa. So Bill Free is the founder of Pure Presence Productions, a spiritual summit organizer, and he is also co-founder of the Teachers of God Foundation. That was something he and Lisa created together. And it's so much fun to hear her tell the story, Bill, because she just says, we just thought, what would be fun? Like, what would be a fun thing to do? And so it was such a beautiful collaboration of the two of them creating the Teachers of God Foundation. Among other things, Bill loves and shares the teachings of A Course in Miracles in his daily Facebook Lives, and he has done for a more of a non-dual experience of the daily workbook. He does that at the Teachers of God Facebook page, and you can find more about Bill. You can find more about him at billfree.com. So, and so beautiful that you are taking a non-dual approach to those workbook lessons. So we'll just turn the time over to you, Bill, and hear about your journey, the before and the after. And he's promised to do it in 20 minutes. Thanks again.
Thank you, Carly and Teresa. It is my joy to be here sharing with you and whomever is watching this on a replay. And the journey that I'll just give a bite-sized version of it, because I could literally go on for hours, or at least more than an hour. But I'll just give you the bite-sized version of it, because at the end of the day, the idea of being happy, looking for happiness, is what the world is looking for. The world is looking for a way to be happy, and many of us, like myself, we start off with looking for what are spiritual ideas. I started off as a drug addict first in the 60s, and following all of those great musicians that you saw at Woodstock. I was at the next pop festival at 15 years old. A couple weeks later from Woodstock, they went to Texas, where I was. At 15 years old, I'm watching Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin and The Doors and Led Zeppelin and all of the great bands 10 years after. And that began my love for drugs and that sandbox that the hippies, I sort of came into that hippie movement of the late 60s and early 70s, and then I stayed with those drugs until I was about 27 years old. I ended up being married, having a small child, and my marriage wasn't really working out as a drug addict, because it just into alcohol and drugs, and we had a small child, and our marriage broke off. And as a single parent, I kept custody of our little girl, and I wanted to do the right thing. I wanted to be a good dad, so I thought maybe I'll start going to church now and quit the drugs. So I started following Jesus, and I became a born-again Christian. At 27, I totally quit drugs, 100%, and started raising my daughter as a Christian. And I did that for a long time, for over 20 years. And then I heard about A Course in Miracles in my, I guess I was in my 50s. I heard about A Course in Miracles. I had been sober 100% all of those 20 plus years. And someone mentioned, I think, my younger sister mentioned The Course in Miracles to me, and she had seen Gary Renard. And I thought, well, that sounds interesting. So I went and bought the book. I bought Gary Renard's book, The Disappearance of the Universe. I got to page 95 in The Disappearance of the Universe, and it said that Ken Wapnick will be known as the foremost teacher of A Course in Miracles of our time, and he's still alive. This is Arten and Persa talking to Gary. He's still alive today, Gary. And immediately on page 95, I went over to the computer. I made reservations to go meet Ken Wapnick in Temecula, California, and went back to finish reading The Disappearance of the Universe. If you don't know that book, it cuts about 5 years off your learning curve being introduced to the Course in Miracles. And I did that. I read 400 pages in 4 days. I couldn't sleep. I stayed up all night reading that book. And then I actually went and ordered the blue book of A Course in Miracles, because the bookstore that had The Disappearance of the Universe was out of the Course in Miracles. I ordered it from the foundation. They blue labeled it to me. It was in my mailbox Monday morning. I picked up The Disappearance of the Universe, I think Thursday. I ordered it blue label, so it just took 3 or 4 days. FedEx wasn't as automatic as it is now. And so I had the course, and immediately when I picked up the course, I went to the back of the book, the Manual for Teachers, and it started talking about the teacher. You're a teacher of God. And having read Gary's book, 400 pages, coming from a born-again background, I was very interested in all the new interpretations of the Bible that were like, they didn't make sense. But The Disappearance of the Universe and The Course in Miracles, it totally makes sense of many of those Bible verses that I had become very familiar with as a born again. Every time I come across a Bible verse, I'd go, oh, that makes sense. Oh, yes, that makes way more sense. And so by the time I finished Gary's book, I was done being a Christian in 4 days. I'd been a Christian for over 20 years. I'm done with that. That is totally false. And that's what brought me to the Course. And I went with the Course. I went all in with the Course. Like I said, I made arrangements to get the Course sent to me. I made arrangements to go and visit Ken Wapnick, and this was in December of 2006, and I made plans to go meet Ken at his next 7-day retreat in Temecula, and I found out Gary Renard was going to be in Bradenton, Florida. I was living in Florida at the time. He was going to be in Bradenton, Florida in January, so I made reservations to go be with him right after December was over, after Christmas. And I finished The Disappearance of the Universe right when the Course got there. I started reading the Manual for Teachers, and I just knew that I was Christ. I knew from reading this that I was Christ, and I just really wasn't getting it. I was misunderstanding what I was reading, even though I was reading that you're a teacher of God and you are Christ. You are Christ incarnate, and I took that as a literal experience. I knew I was Christ. So I started telling people that I was Christ, and I wasn't taking no for an answer. And they put me in a sort of a psych ward for about a week, evaluating me over that experience. I was not willing to say that wasn't true. And my family at the time, my former wife, insisted that I stop reading A Course in Miracles and I come back to the Bible and the church. And I said, I am not doing that. Just leave me in the psych ward. I'd rather stay in here than go back to an idea that I know is false. And I ended up getting out of the psych ward, and it wasn't very long that, I left home. I actually moved into my motorhome that was on my property, and because my former wife did not want me to bring A Course in Miracles in the house. And I said, well, I'm not going to stop reading it. So I moved into our motorhome on our property, and I lived in there for about 3 months, reading the Course every day, all night. I couldn't put it down. I wanted to. If you could make a meal out of it, I would have found a way to put it into food and eat it. I was just so I was so hungry for the content of the Course. And I went to meet Gary, and I had this great idea that I was a bit of a manic episode with the whole thing, and an evangelist coming from the Christian background. And when I went to meet with Gary Renard in January, I bought 10 copies of all of his books, The Disappearance of the Universe, Your Immortal Reality, the 2 books he had out, and I bought 10 copies of the Course in Miracles. I had Gary sign all the copies of his books to people that I knew that I wanted to give the books to, because I had 10 people in mind I wanted to give the books to, and I wanted them autographed to them. So he signed all the books, and I had him, and I don't know what I did with the blue book. I think I ordered 10 copies from the Foundation for Inner Peace, and I had 30 copies of these books, 10 of each copy, because I was building a $22 million house. I was the owner's rep building a $22 million house as a general contractor, and I thought, well, this street is a total of about $1 billion worth of value on this one street where I was building this one house, where the house next door was 18 million. On the left side, the house on the right side was 25 million. The house 3 doors down was 38 million. The house across the street was 10 million. All these rich people, I wanted to go tell them about A Course in Miracles and get them to fund a project to put 30 copies of A Course in Miracles in all the universities in the United States. And so I called Ken Wapnick and I said, Ken, here's my idea. And he said, Bill, calm down. You're getting way ahead of yourself here. This A Course in Miracles is for one person. It's not for the whole United States or world. It's just for you. And I hung the phone up. I'm still living in my motorhome. I hung the phone up and I went, wow, that guy's not very spiritual. It was so funny when I think back of what I was doing. But my idea, so I called Bob Scutch. Ken Wapnick said that Bob Scutch, Judy Scutch's husband, is the publisher of the Course. And so I called him to find out how much 80,000 copies of the Course would be, so I could put it in all these colleges. And I started going to these billionaire people on Billionaire Row, and they didn't really want to hear what I had to say. A couple of them gave me an audience. I played the DVD, The Forgotten Song, which is the 1-hour DVD of Bill and Helen, and I got some, there was some interest, but it was I was being an evangelist, and I was just so excited about the Course. And so that was my beginning with the Course. I was so excited about the truth of it. And that hasn't changed. That hasn't changed. I've gone to many other traditions. I've looked. I mean, Muji is a beautiful friend of mine. Now I went and lived. Actually, I lived with David Hoffmeister and the miracles, the living miracles for about 3 months. They invited me to be I went from making, $100,000 a year just as a consultant for this U.S. ambassador to Portugal, where I was building this house, to a volunteer at Miracles Monastery in Utah for nothing, for no pay. So I left that life of being a general contractor because I only wanted God. Even as a born again Christian, I just wanted to do the things that Jesus said he did. So when I found Jesus, when I became a born again, I got on a plane, I opened up the Bible, and I saw where Jerusalem was and Bethlehem. I got on a TWA Airlines jet. I flew to Israel. I went to Bethlehem. I wanted to walk where Jesus walked. So that pull that I've had for the truth has been ever since I was 27 years old, and it hasn't waned. And when I found a more full version, a more logical, basic understanding of what Jesus' real message was in A Course in Miracles, I knew that it was true. I'd spent over 20 years following the Bible. I knew this was the real deal. And so when I followed the Course, I just knew that this was my life purpose. This was the path that was going to take me home, and it has. It is the path that has taken me home, because I know that what the Course presents is the truth that sets you free. When Jesus gave that verse that says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," it's all of us. We're all that. We're all the way, the truth, and the life. And we all come to the Father through the portal of our own being. We all come to the Father, to perfect oneness. We come to the awareness of love's presence as I am. Just as Jesus was pointing to 2,000 years ago to the Sanhedrin and the Pharisees, that's the truth that sets us free from this bodysuit right now. We don't have to wait for it. This bodysuit doesn't have to die first. You can have an enlightenment, awakening, self-realization experience right now. In fact, that's the only way that you can have it, is now. You can't have it in the past. You can't have it in the future, and you can't have it because you are so smart and you know all the workbook lessons by heart. You've got them all memorized and you know exactly what it says. You can't have it with intellectual concepts and knowing all the parts. You have to know the self, and God takes the last step. And it's available in the understanding and what A Course in Miracles has to offer. And I love the Course. I read it every single day. I've probably read it 8-10 times, cover to cover. I've read the Blue Book. I've read the Sparkly. I love the Purple edition because it's the more complete edition that doesn't leave anything out. It has some additional things that, take it or leave it. The cameos are great. The commentaries, take it or leave it. But the Course in Miracles is a life experience. And it's when you have a love for truth, when you have a love for awakening, it will absolutely pull you to the experience of awakening. If you want it above all else, it will deliver that. But it has to be the same intensity that seemed to separate us from our source, has to be the same intensity of desire that brings us back to our source. And that's why those two great lessons, 28 and 29, when we give instructions above all else, I want to see we're giving instructions to the mind that thought that it was separate, but now is awakening to the truth. And now the light that we are, what the Course says, the light has come, we are that light, it will pull us to the path of awakening. And I love A Course in Miracles. I also love Mooji. I went and lived with Mooji for 3 months back in 2010. I lived with him when he first bought the property in Portugal, and I became friends with many at the Sangha there at Sahaja. And I followed Mooji for several years while I was following the Course. And then I met Rupert Spira, and I went and interviewed him probably about 5 years ago. And I just love the way Rupert's direct understanding, the way he presents the Advaita Vedanta, which is the same as what Mooji presents, coming from the Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta. The Advaita tradition is a great companion of spiritual learning to go with what the Course points to. Rupert Spira introduces the direct path of non-duality. And in the last few years, the thing I like to do is I like to bring A Course in Miracles, integrate it with non-duality, with the direct path of non-duality, because you can only know the self when there's nothing else. You can only know the self when there's not two-ness, when there's not duality. You have to come to self-realization by recognizing that there's only one being. There's not two of us. There's only one of us, and you are it. And it's not your bodysuit. It's not your personal self identity. It's the I am that you am.
So, Bill, you said you were an evangelist as a born-again Christian, and then you found A Course in Miracles and became an evangelist for A Course in Miracles. And then what happened after that? Did you settle down and decide that you didn't need to promote this message to people who weren't interested? And then
I had to leave my family first. I tried to evangelize my family that were born again Christians. I mean, all of them were born again Christians. My former father-in-law was the chairman of the board of the Moody Bible Institute, and I wanted them to get to have the real truth. So I first tried to evangelize them into the Course in Miracles, just like we used to evangelize what we would call non-believers. I wanted them to have the real deal, the Holy Grail of A Course in Miracles. And so that I needed to leave that marriage and that whole thing. And David Hoffmeister showed up in my life just in the right time, invited me to come and be a construction sort of a construction maintenance guy for the monastery in Utah, and I just left that life behind. I left it behind, and I ended up meeting. I met Regina Dawn Akers, had become a good friend of mine, and she lived only maybe 500 or 600 miles from the monastery in Utah. And when I left the monastery in Utah, after being there for a little while, I felt like I needed to still nurture and grow with like-minded people. Regina Dawn Akers was that person for me, and I drove my motorhome from the Miracles Monastery. I drove it from Florida to Texas to Utah from Utah to Colorado, where Regina lived, and I lived in my motorhome for about 9 months, and I did daily reading of NTI with Regina Dawn Akers and several other people. We would meet in her home every morning, every day, until her daughter said, "Mom, do we have to have people in the house every day?" So we cut out the weekends, and we would meet every day through the week, Monday through Friday, and we would study NTI. And it was then that I started having a love for non-duality and awareness, the teachings of awareness, of being aware, and the power of the non-dual consciousness of awareness. And it was shortly after that I was invited to Boston, where I met Vicky Poppy and the New England gang, where I met Lisa Natoli at Vicky Poppy's house in Boston. And after I met Lisa, we'd been friends for maybe six months, and she told me that she had fallen in love with me, and I'm going, well, that's cool. and so she came back from a tour in Europe, being on tour in Europe for about 6 weeks, and after she came back from her tour in Europe, I had an idea while she was in Spain. I said, hey, how about when you come back from Spain, if we fly out to Colorado, get my motorhome, drive it to Maine, and live in it in a campground for the summer. And we did that, and that was the beginning of our relationship. And it was probably a year into our relationship that we were on the beach one day, and Lisa and I were just talking, and she said, wouldn't it be cool if we had some kind of a spiritual organization? And then we had an idea to start a nonprofit, the Teachers of God Foundation. We did that in 2012, and it's still going very strong today, doing all kinds of things, reaching hundreds of thousands of people, and we're just sharing the truth, having the time of our life, and living the experience that is really pointed to in A Course in Miracles. It is the happy dream, but you can also live the happy dream and know that you're not the dreamer of the dream.
So what would you say has been the single biggest impact in your life from having practiced the principles of A Course in Miracles? If you look at how you used to feel and how you used to think before versus now.
Well, it's so much more than then versus now. It's that the things that attracted me to Jesus at 27 years old are the Course in Miracles describes an experience of your ego self and your Son of God self, your personal self and your eternal self. And the Course in Miracles has given me a direct experience. I have to say that I didn't have the direct experience until I coupled it with the non-dual teaching, because I was where a lot of people that are in the Course, it will keep you stuck in duality if you only, because it's built on the framework of the ego thought system, and you have to take that workbook lesson 189, paragraph 7, to heart. Forget this world, forget this course, come with wholly empty hands unto your God. You are God. You're not God like in charge of the cosmos. You are what God is. Just like the current is what the ocean is, we're the current. in the ocean of God, and there's no place where God stops and we start. So having that as a direct experience is more than just having the concepts about what might happen later. So I live my life knowing the self. I live my life knowing that Bill, the body mind, steps back, and I am that I am in the nature of the Holy Spirit that sees and judges not, that knows the self. It's available. It's a real direct experience that you can know. You can go from the experience of perception to actually knowing the self as I am. The same thing that I was seeking after when I was seeking after Jesus, you can absolutely live in this bodysuit and know this for yourself. So everything is, you don't have to be a prisoner to the bodysuit personality anymore. The attraction of objects of experience are just, they don't have a hold on what is aware of that. And living in the awareness of love's presence is a gift. It's that we all have available, and it's not when the body dies. It's available right now, like that workbook lesson that says, "Why wait for heaven?" Workbook lesson 188. And that enlightenment is not a change, it's but a recognition of what you are always. And enlightenment and awakening is not just for, sages or for people that are like course teachers, really great course teachers that know all the page numbers. I actually don't think that Ken Wapnick was enlightened in the years that I met him, even though he knew more about A Course in Miracles than anyone on the planet. I had conversations with Ken. He wasn't awake yet. He may have been awake before the body laid down for Ken Wapnick, but he wasn't awake when Bill Free met him.
Well, Bill, we are so happy that you were able to join us today to share your story. And we encourage everyone to check out more of Bill's work at his website or at the Teachers of God Foundation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for asking me to share, and it has been my joy and blessing to be with both of you. Bye-bye.
Bye.